A few weeks ago, I talked about the Thundercloud and why I think it's a bullshit item. After making that video, I thought it'd be a good idea to talk about all the other wonderful and wacky items in this game. After all, what's Mario Kart without items? Just a heads up, I won't be talking about the modified items that are in CTGP. I'll just be talking about the items that are in the vanilla version of this game. Although, triple fake item boxes is a cool item to have. Shouts out the countdown. In total, there's 19 items in Mario Kart Wii. Yes, I'm counting items like the banana and triple bananas as separate items. Fight me. The banana, or nana, or as many people like to call it, Potassium, is one of the many defense items in Mario Kart Wii. Trailing this item behind your vehicle really helps block any shells from hitting you from behind. It's also a nice defensive tool against players who are behind you. It gets even better with triple bananas because this item increases in length, forcing your opponents to keep their distance. On top of that, you're pretty much safe from anyone who has triple shells behind you. In terms of offense, I'd say it's pretty weak in that area. Hitting someone with a banana only reduces a fraction of their speed. Compare that with other items where they make you lose all of your speed. It's still a good trapping and sniping item, and overall one of the better items to get in first place. The green shell is a much better offensive tool than the banana. Hitting someone with a green shell makes them completely lose all their speed. So if you can get your aim right and get your game on, you'll stop your opponents right in their tracks. But why have one green when you can have three, as triple greens revolve around your vehicle? This makes for a solid form of defense for anyone who comes in contact with you. Well, most of the time. You can also use them for getting Shroombas on certain tracks. What's a Shroomba, you may ask? Well, on certain tracks, there's Goombas just walking left from right as hazards. But when you hit them with a shell, they pop out a mushroom for players to get off the ground. Thus why it's called a Shroomba. Isn't learning fun? What makes green shells a little wacky is that they can bounce off walls. There's been many times where players just get hit by a green shell from out of left field just by bouncing off the walls of a track. It also makes some good mind games for players who want to throw their green shells at a wall, knowing that it'll likely hit their opponents. Red shells actually target in on whoever is in front of you. Now, if you play this game a lot, you and I both know that red shells in this game aren't good. You can easily avoid getting hit by one if you cut the corners tight enough. However, you can still hit other players with red shells if you use them at the right time. Having triple reds is also pretty good because you can force other players behind you to not pass. It's kinda like a mind game when it comes to this item. You can either try to pass the player who has triple reds and try to avoid getting hit, or not pass them at all if you want to play it safe. Even when you're behind someone who has a red shell, they are still likely to throw it back and try to hit you. For me, I never trust anyone in front of me who has a red shell. Not gonna lie, I kinda get annoyed when someone backs reds at me, but I tend to do the same because I'm a hypocrite. Mushrooms in this game are so good. A little too good if you ask me, but I'm not complaining. A single mushroom can cover so much distance, and it's a great item to have on certain shortcuts and glitches. You can use this as a nice recovery tool for when you get hit and need to get to top speed again. They're also a nice get out of dodge type item if you want to avoid someone. Goldens are mushrooms but on steroids. It gives you a lot of speed boost for a short amount of time. The main issue I have with Goldens in this game is that there's no visible time frame of when it's going to run out as I'm using it. One thing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did to improve on this was adding a timer on the item slot, letting players know how much time they have until the golden runs out. It's a very nice detail. Wow, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe actually has something good within the game. Yo, clap it up for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, guys. Okay, that's enough. This is a great item to have on tracks that has a lot of off-road shortcuts. Also, the highest this item can be pulled in a 12-player room is 6th place. 6th place! It's very rare, but it's a great item to get within the final stretch of a race. Fake item boxes, or fibs, is exactly what it is. A fake item box. It doesn't take a genius to know the difference between a fib and a real item box. One is very colorful with a question mark right side up. The other is as red as a strawberry with a question mark upside down. I mean, you must be a complete dummy to... This item can't block any shells, so in terms of defending against other items, it's not good. However, this item is a great trapping tool because of how thick it is. On tracks with a lot of blind turns, BC64. This item is great to place around those turns for players to hit them. There's one other item that's similar but does way more damage, but I'll get to it later. This item is pretty much a joke. Every time I pull this item, I just chuckle because it's not that effective. The blooper covers up parts of the screen, but you can still see where you're going if you can work your way around it. This item is just useless on tracks that has a lot of boost panels. You're better off not pulling this item at all. The way that I would improve this item is to make it so that the blooper covers up at least like 50% of the screen. That way players are actually given a challenge for when a blooper hits their screen. On a side note, this item has been altered in a few ways on some custom tracks in CTGP. Jungle Jamble and GCN Dry Desert just takes the blooper and dials it up to 11. Neo Bowser City, or Neo Koopa City as it's called in CTGP because copyright reasons, has a cool blooper design that's exclusive to this track. And Mario Kart 7's Bowser's Castle, or Bowser's Fiery Fortress as it's called because copyright reasons, has the one and only Chatters. It's pretty cool how some CTs have exclusive blooper designs. I'm not going to talk about this item too much because I made a whole video about it, link in the description below. But I'll save you the rant in this video. I think this item is shit in every way and it's hands down the worst item in the game. The blue shell, or as some people like to call it, blueberry pie, or the spiny shell as it's called in the Mario Kart Wii manual. Okay, legit, no one calls this the spiny shell. I doubt even Nintendo themselves call it that. But anyways, this item is the item that ruins friendships. This is the item that makes you want to hit someone over the head with a steel chair. This is the one item first place fears the most whenever they're in this position. The blue shell will explode upon impact on whoever is in first place. Well, sort of. The way the blue works in this game is very weird. There are moments where first place has already finished the race, but someone has already used the blue shell. What happens then is that the blue will instead target second place, or third, or whoever hasn't finished the race because first place has already crossed the finish line. This is the dumbest property of the blue shell, but this is the game I love to play, so I'm willing to put up with it. There's also this weird way of the blue shell splitting. What's a blue shell split? This only happens online, but a blue shell split is when the two top positions are constantly switching positions and the blue shell splits into two and hits both players. It's tricky to explain, but that's the best way I can summarize that. Another issue with the blue is that there's no cooldown time between each blue shell within a race. There's times during the races where there's like 6 blues every 10 seconds. That might be a little exaggerated, but this shit happens a lot. It mostly happens on tracks that have a lot of item boxes. This item should have a cooldown timer for every time it's been used. I'd say 20 seconds should be a good enough cooldown. I like how this item in later Mario Kart games can tackle other racers, making it a threat to not only first place, but to other players as well. You can also dodge a blue shell with a star, bullet, mega, or shroom, which honestly just feels so satisfying. This is a very strong item because of the huge blast radius it has. The way this item works in this game is pretty interesting. If you toss or drop a bomb, it'll take a few seconds to detonate. However, if any players are within range of this item landing, it'll detonate on the spot. You're almost guaranteed to hit another player with this item if they're pretty close to you. This item is more effective if you drop it behind you. The huge blast radius combined with the detonation timing makes it almost unavoidable. There's always a chance that around the next corner, there's a bomb just waiting to blow up in your face. It's almost like a jump scare when it comes to this item. You never know when it's gonna happen. This is the last sniping item I've covered. On a side note, sniping people is one of the most satisfying things to do in this game. Pow Block is the most underrated item in the game to me. This item is great in many ways. It makes all the players in front of you lose all their items. In situations like that, it's a great item to chain into the next set of item boxes. Another great use of the Pow is for areas on the track that has a lot of sharp turns and spirals. It's a great opportunity to screw up other players and make them crash into walls or fall off the track. This is the Pow at its best in my eyes. Another way I like to use the Pow is to use it in last place, chain it, and make everyone lose their items. It's a nice idea to screw up the plans of the players who are holding their Pow items, which I'll get to in a second. There's also a chance of me getting a good power or speed item myself. The Mega Mushroom is one of 3 new items that was introduced in Mario Kart Wii. This item makes you bigger for a short amount of time. You'll get flattened if someone runs you over while they're in a Mega. Almost nothing can stop you if you activate a Mega Mushroom. Well, stars and bullets can still knock you around, but you get the picture. The only problem I have with the Mega is that your character takes up a good portion of the screen. Depending on the vehicle, you can barely see what's in front of you. Nintendo should have made it so that the camera view gets bigger as well if you're in a Mega. I love how there's a mini jingle to the Mega when you use it. There's also an out of tune theme for when you're near someone who has a Mega. It's a nice detail that I love about this item. Overall, I enjoyed this item and hope it comes back in future Mario Kart games. The star is an all-round good item. It gives you a little extra speed and it's pretty much invincible when it comes into contact with any other item or hazard. Now this item isn't completely invincible. It can't protect me from going out of bounds and stuff like that. However, it's one of 3 items that can protect you from the shock. Overall, it's a pretty good item. And just like with the Mega Mushroom, the star also has a nice mini jingle when you activate it. The Billboard is the fastest item in the game. Sadly, this item doesn't have a nice jingle like the other 2 dodge items I just covered. What would the Billboard jingle even be? An interesting feature about the bullet is that it can either last a very long or short period of time depending on what placement you use it in. Say I'm in 12th place and I use the bullet. By the time it ends, it'll likely put me in a mid spot because I'm so far behind. Now let's say I get the bullet in 12th and bring it up to 6th place and activate it then. It'll likely bring me up to 1st place depending on how far 1st place is. How long a bullet lasts always depends on what placement and how many players you've passed. Few issues I have with this item. 1. It's way too punishing if you get hit. Getting hit by a Billboard will cause you to flip over twice and lose all your speed. I think getting hit by a bill should be exactly like getting hit by a star. You only flip over once, but the punishment isn't as brutal. Another problem with the bullet is that it'll sometimes take the slower routes on the tracks. It'll also take some bipolar lines. It can take a wide or tight turn in the blink of an eye. It's really annoying. In me power. The shock is similar to the Pow Block, but it's much more effective. This item targets everyone within the race, unlike the Pow where it only affects players who are in front of you. If you do get shocked, you'll become smaller, have less weight, and will go slower. The time to revert back to your normal size depends on the placement you're in. If you get shocked in 11th, it'll only take around a second. Shocked in 10th, around 2 seconds, and so on and so forth. You can avoid getting hit by this item in many ways. A star, bullet, Mega Mushroom, cannon, getting a good respawn, turning off your console. There's a good amount of ways to avoid it. Dodging the shock will help you gain ground against other players because they're not going as fast. Another thing about the shock is that once a race starts, no one can pull it until it's been 30 seconds into the race. And once it's been used, no one can pull it until it's been 30 seconds. I think the cooldown time is perfect and it's something I really wish the blue shell had. This is a really powerful item and it can really change the tide of a race. So that pretty much covers all the items within this game. So after going over all 19 of these items, there must be one item that's the definitive best, right? Well, no. At least not to me. I personally don't think there's a definitive best item in this game. Some items are better than others, sure, but I can't say that there's one that's downright the best from the rest. An item is only as good as how well you use it. For example, if I use a 30-second shock, that won't do me any good. Sure, I managed to slow down my opponents, but in the long term, it won't help me get a good spot by the end of the race. If I just spam my triple reds at once, they're all just gonna crack onto each other instead of actually hitting someone. It also depends on the situation you're in. Let's say it's the final lap on Grumble Volcano and you pull a bullet bill in last, but the players in 10th and 11th have shrooms to take the lava glitch. On paper, a bullet is better than triple shrooms, but in this situation, the players who pulled the shrooms are going to get better positions than you because the cut they took saved a good amount of time. You see what I'm getting at? Whether it be casual or competitive, any item can be really good or bad given the situation you're in. Hell, even the TC can be good if it's the last item you pull and you can abuse the properties of it to get to the finish line in time. But at the end of the day, these are the items that we use in Mario Kart Wii. Items that I personally think adds more enjoyment to not only this game, but to the Mario Kart series as a whole. What do you think about the items in Mario Kart Wii? Do you have a favorite item, least favorite item, items that make you want to rip your hair out? Tell me in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.